Horror for the U.S. imperialists, Uncle Ho's prophecy about the B-52 flying fortress. As President Ho Chi Minh predicted, in Vietnam, the U.S. will definitely lose, even if it launches the B-52 flying fortress. The general of the Vietnam People's Army affirmed that the victory of the Hanoi, Hai Phong air defense campaign in December 1972 in the sky of the North was a surprise and horror for the U.S. imperialists and the Saigon puppet regime. Faced with the increasingly escalating actions of the U.S. imperialists, along with his very accurate premonitions, President Ho Chi Minh had early predictions, calculations, and preparations to deal with the trump card of the U.S. Air Force. Horror for the U.S. imperialists. When evaluating the victory of Hanoi, Dien Bien Phu in the air, in 1972, he affirmed that it was the bravery and intelligence of Vietnam. According to the general, 50 years ago, under the leadership of the Party Central Committee, the Politburo, directly the Central Military Commission, the Ministry of National Defense, our army and people defeated the strategic air raid, mainly by B-52 aircraft of the U.S. imperialists on Hanoi, Hai Phong and some localities in the north. When evaluating the victory of Hanoi, Dien Bien Phu in the air, in 1972, it was affirmed that it was the bravery and intelligence of Vietnam. According to the general, 50 years ago, under the leadership of the Party Central Committee, the Politburo, directly the Central Military Commission, the Ministry of National Defense, our army and people defeated the strategic air raid, mainly by B-52 aircraft of the U.S. imperialists on Hanoi, Hai Phong and some localities in the north. The victory at Dien Bien Phu in the air also encouraged and motivated the Vietnamese people and delighted international friends, contributing to a turning point in the struggle for national liberation, forcing the Richard Nixon administration to de-escalate the war, return to the negotiating table and sign the Paris Agreement to end the war and restore peace in Vietnam. In this campaign, according to the general, while the U.S. emptied its pockets to launch into the strategic air raid modern combat vehicles and weapons, including B-52 aircraft, guided bombs, jammers. Meanwhile, the weapons of the Vietnamese army were only at a relatively modern level, such as MiG-17, MiG-21 aircraft, SAM-2 missiles, 100mm anti-aircraft guns, P-35 radar. In January 1963, the Air Defense, Air Force Service was established, on the basis of merging the Air Defense Command and the Air Force Department. This is a new development in the organization and combat power of the Vietnam People's Army. The Service Command continues to promote research on the B-52 aircraft. Operations and military intelligence agencies actively collect information and documents related to the B-52 aircraft, especially the features and effects of the super-flying fortress. Immediately after the U.S. used B-52 aircraft to bomb Ben Cat, June 18, 1965, Mu Jia Pass, Quang Binh, April 12, 1966. If the U.S. loses to Vietnam, it will be very shameful, Uncle Ho's strategic premonition. President Ho Chi Minh directly assigned the Air Defense, Air Force Service the task of researching how to fight the B-52. The Air Defense, Air Force Service clearly demonstrated the idea of proactively attacking, promptly mobilizing forces, weapons, and equipment, radar troops, electronic reconnaissance, Air Force coordinated activities, studied the technical features, characteristics, operating rules of B-52 aircraft and studied how to fight B-52. On December 15, the Voice of Vietnam electronic newspaper excerpted from the book, Hanoi, Dien Bien Phu Victory in the Air 1972, Vietnam's Strength and the Stature of the Era with the views of Associate Professor Dr. Lai Viet Quang, Director of the Ho Chi Minh Institute, and Dr. Pham Van Minh on the strategic premonitions and visions of the era of President Ho Chi Minh. In fact, the Hanoi, Hai Phong air defense campaign at the end of 1972 was one of the campaigns in which President Ho Chi Minh had many predictions, strategies, and directly led and directed our army and people to proactively prepare for combat. Practice successful combat, not to be passive and surprised by the plot to use the Super B-52 flying fortress to attack the north of the U.S. imperialists. With his intelligence, President Ho Chi Minh clearly understood the nature and plot of the U.S. imperialists in Indochina and Vietnam. Despite continuous defeats in many battlefields in the south of Vietnam, relying on military, economic, scientific and technological strength, the U.S. imperialists refused to accept defeat and give up their ambition to invade Vietnam. In 1967, when visiting the Air Defense, Air Force Command, President Ho Chi Minh affirmed, sooner or later, the U.S. imperialists will send B-52s to attack Hanoi, and only when they lose will they accept defeat. We must anticipate all situations as soon as possible, to have time to think and prepare. Remember that before losing in Korea, the U.S. imperialists destroyed Pyongyang. In Vietnam, the U.S. will definitely lose, but it will only lose after losing in the sky of Hanoi. President Ho Chi Minh emphasized, if America loses, it will be very ashamed. It will be very angry, because it has lost in China, lost in Korea, and now if it loses in Vietnam, it will lose face and be ashamed. Therefore, until the last minute, it will bite. It will try to bite and then it will lose again. Dr. Pham Van Minh emphasized that his prediction was completely well-founded and historical facts have also proven this to be a completely accurate assessment. That shows the strategic vision of an excellent political and military leader, President Ho Chi Minh. In fact, since the early 1960s, in the face of the enemy's increasingly obvious provocations, incitements, and constant sabotage of the North, President Ho Chi Minh firmly warned, if they recklessly touch the North, they will certainly fail miserably, because the people of our whole country will resolutely fight them back. In the context of the U.S. imperialists' increasingly escalating actions and his very accurate premonitions, President Ho Chi Minh had early calculations and preparations to deal with the trump card of the U.S. Air Force, the B-52 Flying Fortress. In 1962, he asked and advised Mr. Phung The Thai, commander of the Air Defense Force at that time, now you are the commander of the Air Defense Force. So do you know anything about the B-52? Just saying that, even if you know, you still can't do anything about it. It flies over 10 kilometers high. And in your hands right now you only have anti-aircraft guns. But from now on, as commander of the Air Defense Force, you must closely monitor and regularly pay attention to this type of B-52 aircraft. Later, working with the Air Defense, Air Force Command, he assigned the task, must prepare ways to fight the B-52. In any situation must defeat the B-52 if they attack the North. Especially Hanoi, Haiphong, smashing the U.S.'s ambitions. Following President Ho Chi Minh's instructions, the Air Defense, Air Force Command and combat agencies, military intelligence actively collected information and documents about the B-52 aircraft. At the same time studied how to fight and prepared combat plans against the B-52. The Vietnamese army and people proactively prepared, increased forces and means, air defense troops actively built, trained and mastered combat plans, combat situations with good, unique, creative fighting methods, mastered new weapons and military equipment. Therefore, the first battle between the Vietnamese army and people against the U.S. Air Force in the northern sky on August 5, 1964 was a resounding victory when they shot down 8 enemy planes and captured many pilots. Since 1965, along with the massive deployment of U.S. troops to South Vietnam, the U.S. imperialists escalated the war, sent planes to attack North Vietnam and began using B-52 planes on the Vietnam battlefield, including many times violating the northern sky. In particular, since April 1967, the U.S. frantically escalated its attacks on Hanoi. Therefore, researching and finding ways to fight and defeat B-52 planes, protecting the socialist North, and protecting the capital Hanoi is an important task for the army and people of the North. After many years of collecting information, researching documents, finding ways to fight and building combat plans, especially implementing President Ho Chi Minh's teaching, if you want to catch a tiger, you must go into its den. In April 1966, the Air Defense, Air Force Command sent 4 battalions of the 238th Regiment, the 2nd Missile Regiment of our Army, to the Vinh Linh Front, Quang Tri, to build a battlefield. determined to shoot down the B-52. In August 1967, a delegation of officers from the Missile Command led by Mr. Hoang Van Kaan, deputy commander, along with a number of representatives of combat training agencies, military intelligence, and engineering, went to Vinh Linh to directly direct the 238th Regiment to shoot down the B-52. With the determination of the officers and soldiers of Regiment 238, and the direct leadership and direction of the Missile Corps Command, the first B-52s were shot down in the sky of Vinh Linh. The telegram sent by Mr. Hoang Van Kaan to the command clearly stated, at 5:03 p.m. on September 17, 1967, Battalion 84 launched 2 shells at a group of B-52s, destroying one. Then, at 5:34 p.m., launched 2 more shells at another group of B-52s, destroying 1 more. Receiving the news of victory, President Ho Chi Minh was very happy. He personally wrote a letter praising the heroic soldiers and people of Vinh Linh. I am very pleased to hear that on September 17, 1967, Vinh Linh achieved the first outstanding feat of shooting down 2 B-52s of the American enemy. On behalf of the party Central Committee and the government, Uncle Ho especially commended the people, soldiers and cadres of Vinh Linh for their excellent fighting, accurate shooting and glorious victory. Vinh Linh is truly worthy of being the heroic front line of the Socialist North. Particularly, Battalion 84, Missile Regiment 238 was awarded the second-class Military Exploit Medal by Uncle Ho. The experience of shooting down B-52 aircraft at the Vinh Linh front later became the document on B-52, along with other research documents and practical combat experience of many units. Over many years, especially in early 1972, officers with good technical and tactical skills and extensive combat experience compiled the book, How to Fight B-52 of Missile Troops. This is the Red Cover Handbook, a valuable document. The intelligence and bravery of Vietnam that contributed significantly to the glorious victory of Dien Bien Phu in the air. This is also the work that the Air Defense, Air Force Command determined to carry out the profound advice of President Ho Chi Minh, must prepare how to fight B-52. General Vo Nguyen Giap affirmed, our victory over the US B-52 was due to many reasons, including the extremely important contribution of this book. Once you fight, you must win. With such careful preparation, the Vietnamese army and people took the initiative, setting up a heavenly net to wait for the B-52s. Therefore, most of the enemy aircraft that came to attack Hanoi and the surrounding areas were within the Vietnamese army's expectations. In reality, during the 12 days and nights of December 1972, up to 70% of the B-52s flew from the northwest to attack Hanoi. As for Hai Phong, the accuracy was almost 100%. This further proves that President Ho Chi Minh's prophecies and strategic forecasts were completely accurate, helping our army and people prepare and practice combat smoothly, achieving high combat efficiency. In particular, along with early predictions that the U.S. would send B-52s to attack the North and important instructions for our army and people to prepare in advance, not to be passive or surprised. President Ho Chi Minh also frequently visited, wrote letters to encourage cadres, soldiers and people, built confidence and raised the determination to dare to fight and defeat the B-52s. Defeat the American enemy, even if the U.S. imperialists have a lot of guns, a lot of money, even if they have B-57s, B-52s, or whatever, we will fight, with that many planes, that many American troops, or even more, we will fight, and if we fight, we will definitely win, Uncle Ho said when visiting cadres and soldiers of Company 1, Battalion 1, Tam Dao Group, Air Defense, Air Force. In the 10 years from 1959 until his passing, President Ho Chi Minh visited and encouraged the Air Defense, Air Force 19 times, including 5 times on the occasion of Lunar New Year. President Ho Chi Minh's special attention was a source of great encouragement and motivation for the officers and soldiers of the Air Defense, Air Force to fight bravely, contributing significantly to the resounding victory of the Army and people of the North against the B-52 superfortress, the trump card of the U.S. Air Force.